Going for two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo, this is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo.
What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 348 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I am your host, of course, Geoff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at GeoffLambert77. Of course, we are live here every Friday night at 10:30 on the Going for Two Live Podcast Network. We are on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. And now we have our own website, goingfor2.live. Has all of the audio and video content for the show. Also has all the links to everywhere you can find us, all the podcast networks, all the video locations, whether it be YouTube or Twitch or whatever. It's all there. Goingfor2.live. Of course, syndicated in all major podcast networks as well. If you are on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out a ton with our algorithm. And I'm here with my host, Mr. Tim. What's up, Tim?
Oh, man, I am so happy that we'll talk about here in a minute our guest for this evening, man. I can't wait to get started. Coming off a little bit of a bad week for me, man, but I'm feeling good. We got Garrett on the show.
Yes, sir. We got Garrett and Lasab, right? That's how you say it?
Lasab, close enough, brother.
All right, Lasab. Yeah, of course, he's from the DFS Roundtable. I know a couple of people in the chat know who this guy. He was our week one $100,000 winner. He took down, I don't know what his tournament was, but I know he took down a tournament for $100K. So Garrett, real quick, introduce yourself and let them know what your lineup looked like in week one.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Man, I did a who dat stack, right?
Yeah, you did.
Thought I'd get lucky with Derek Carr, Jamal Williams. Think it was Olave.
Chris Olave, yeah.
Yep. I had Tyreek and Aaron Jones really won me the money. I had DJ Moore in there. Man, just decided to take a shot. I deposited, like $250 for preseason, and I said, whatever I win through preseason, I'm just going to take the biggest shot I can. And I come up over a little over 2,000 during preseason, thanks to my boy Randy hooking me up on some preseason lines, and just took a shot. I think it was the single entry Thunderdome, the $1,500 single entry. Funny thing is, man, same lineup in the Millie Maker wins $25.
Yeah.
Over here, $100K. Obviously, my biggest win, man, and just couldn't.
Yeah. Play single entry.
Yes,
it's the 100%. Best lesson to learn here. Play single entry.
I was just gonna say contest selection.
Contest selection. That's it, brother. 100%.
100%. All right, let's get into our rewind.
The weekly rewind. Rewind.
All right, Tim, I know you had a tough week, you said. Why don't you give us your one good, one bad from last week?
Yeah, the one good was Devon Achane. I was all over him last week. I had him in like 66% of my lineup, so that was good. Unfortunately, as I put in my thread in the DFS Roundtable this week, one of my final decisions came down to Bijan Robinson versus Jamar Chase, and I went the Bijan route, and that cost me about 40 points. So, yeah, that one hurt, man. That basically tanked my week. It was definitely my worst week of the season.
Yeah, that one got me too in my cash lineup, because at one point I had Chase and Tyreek Hill in my cash lineup. Ended up downgrading Chase. I believe I went with Marquise Brown so that I can pay up and get Bijan. But yeah, it didn't work out so well. I should have stayed with Chase for sure. What about you, Garrett? What's your one good, one bad for the week?
Man, second week in a row. Should have played my early only all day. Had a Tua stack. If I would have went Mostert over Achane, and I was on the fence about Thielen, man, if I would have played Achane and Thielen, I would have probably won another 100,000, man. I was really close. 180 22 was my score for the early only, which still cashed me in some good money. And then I got suckered into Zach Wilson's got to be able to put up 70 like Tua against Denver, right?
Oh man,
Didn't really happen. So my all day got crushed, man.
Yeah, that was tough. I know Jets were popular that day, and yeah, Zach Wilson didn't really pay off very well.
Yeah, Brees was the only good thing out of that lineup, I think.
Yeah, my one good, and I cheated a little bit and went with almost two goods because I had the Burrow Chase stack that I mentioned on the show last week, and that one obviously did quite well thanks to a shit ton of targets to Jamar Chase and 3 touchdowns. So I said it was gonna be their coming out party, and it definitely was. So that was my one good. My one bad was Nico Collins. I had him everywhere. He was cheap enough that I thought he can sort of capture that magic again after a couple games, and he just killed me in a lot of my lineups. So Nico Collins was my one bad. But all in all, pretty good week. My cash lineup was able to cash thanks to, once again, I got 3 players right in my cash lineup, and that's all I needed. So, 2 weeks in a row, I've done that with just 3 players. So I'm kind of playing with fire. Hope I nail more this week. Let's go ahead and get into the quarterbacks.
Let's talk quarterbacks.
All right, we'll go to you first here, Tim. Who do you got in your elite tier?
Yeah, I only have one guy this week. It's kind of a weird slate, right? Because there's no Josh Allen, there's no Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, who are you going to pay up for? For me, it's Justin Fields. And there's a couple reasons. One, last couple of weeks, we've been seeing a lot more of the Justin Fields we expected coming into the year, right? His completion rate has been much higher. His rush rate has been much higher. And most importantly, he started locking into his number one receiver, which has been very productive for him. So obviously the big news today, which we'll talk about later, is that both of the running backs look like they're going to be out for Chicago, leaving Deonta Foreman as the only running back look like in the play. So I think this is actually going to be a huge buff to Justin Fields and his rushing ability. I think we could see maybe even one of those, 60, 70-yard kind of days, add in a couple of touchdowns, and he can smash at 7,300. So he's my pay-up option this week.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I didn't have any top-tier guys, but listening to you talk about Fields and the things that you just talked about, maybe I'll pay up and get Fields in at least one of my lineups this week. Garrett, we're going to go to you here, and this is your lock of the week.
Lock it in.
Man, I'm going the opposite side of the ball. I think everybody's going to overlook, my cousin Kirk Cousins, and because of the JJ injury, and I'm going to go heavy on him this week and, hope he can get me to the promised land again.
Yeah, Kurt, I think it was a U team that told me that he has the most pass attempts so far this year.
He does.
Yeah, that's not going to change. I think they're going to stick the same offense. It's going to be the Kurt. You're right. It's going to be lower ownership because everybody's afraid that he's going to be out, and I think they're still going to throw the ball a ton, and that price tag is really, really good. So you have one more guy there, Garrett, that you like in the top tier. Go ahead and talk about Tua a little bit.
Yeah, Tua, man, he's just been solid. Kind of pretty consistent for me when I play him. So I put him up there because he's a easy probably 18 or 20 points this week, maybe a little higher. I think he can get you to value at least.
Yeah, I agree there. And I think the fact that A-Chain's going to be out, maybe they don't run quite as much as they did last week. And, Tua can put up some points. So, yeah, I like that call as well. We'll move down into the mid-tier and probably one of my favorite mid-tier guys, Mr. Trevor Lawrence, who in my season-long leagues has been absolutely killing me. He actually showed a pretty decent game last week in London. But he gets the Colts this week at 6.5 or 6.5. The Colts are 20th DVOA versus the pass and give up the 9th most points to quarterbacks. And stacking options, I think, are pretty straightforward here for T-Law as well. So I like T-Law. I like this game in general. You're going to kind of see a theme. I got a bunch of guys from this game on my sheet. So T-Law is probably my favorite mid-tier quarterback at 6.5. Tim, who you got?
Yeah, man, I'm going to go with Matt Stafford. Early on, I thought it was going to be, Joe Burrow. Everybody's going to play Joe Burrow, but I'm surprised you were telling me in the pre-show, Matt Stafford looking like he's going to be the highest owned quarterback. But I think it's for good reason, right? We saw what Joe Burrow did to this Cardinal team last week. They have absolutely no pass rush, almost no defense to speak of. And at 6,100, he's kind of the cheapest of that bunch. So I really think you can't go wrong with any of those three guys, particularly in cash. But I think it's probably a Stafford week for me.
Yeah, I love Stafford as well. He's definitely on my list at 6.1. Garrett, who you got for your mid-tier here?
Man, Goff. He's playing Tampa Bay. Goff's been another pretty consistent quarterback. He's getting his weapons back this week. He doesn't turn the ball over. You don't have the rushing upside, man, but he's slinging the ball all over the place. And as long as Montgomery ain't eating up the touchdowns, he's going to get you some points for sure.
Yeah, and his favorite target's going to be back this week as well. I'm
100%.
Yep. Hopefully Laporta plays as well. I think he's listed as questionable. Hopefully he's out there because that also will help that offense.
Yeah, he said he's going to play.
Yeah, I like that. At 6,400, that's a good price. Tim, you got Burrow. You mentioned him just briefly. Go ahead and talk about Burrow a little bit.
Yeah, I think he's kind of the other chalk play this week. I think when you first open it up, you saw Burrow against Seattle. They're one of the premier pass funnel defenses, right? They don't really let you run the ball on them, but they let you pass. They do have a little bit better pass rush than we saw last week with Arizona, but I mean, the game plan was clearly in effect last week. They know they're going to run it back again this week. I'm not worried about Burrow. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to him, but again, I expect he'll be pretty chalky.
Yeah, and Burrow, if you watched that game last week, there's a one play in particular where he had like a 8 to 10 yard run where he looked like he was healthy. He was not
good
in that leg at all. He actually, put a little bit of a move on one of the defenders to get a little bit more yards.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's fully healthy, and that price tag is way, way too cheap for Burrow at full health. So I like that call.
Yep.
Moving
I think
down,
if you can get to Burrow in that mid range, that's where you want to be.
Yeah, agreed. Moving down into the value tier, I'll talk about Minshew Mania at 5,000. He's making his return to Jacksonville, where Minshew Mania first started. I actually looked up his splits. He's had two pass attempts against Jacksonville, so he probably came in like mop up duty or something in the game. But this is the official return to where his Minshew Mania was created. So he'll be hyped for this game. I'm assuming that the crowd will be into it. So at 5K. If you play, you play Minshew and you get a stack option like a cheap Josh Downs, and you could stack pretty much all the stud guys that you want in your lineup. So Minshew Mania at 5K is a guy that I'm looking at in the value tier if you're paying down at quarterback. What about you, Garrett? Who you got in your value tier here?
Who dat, baby? Derek Carr. Man, listen, when he wins you 100,000 week one, You just have the tendency to go back to him again and again and again. So I'm gonna give my boy a couple shots, throw him in with Olave and Kamara. What could go wrong?
Yeah,
I like it. He'll definitely be low owned for sure too, because he's definitely not one of the people that are being talked about a lot.
I think that could be a sneaky game too, man. Saints Houston, I really do.
Yeah, you're
right.
So
speaking of a guy I think is going to be low owned, I think everybody's going to click on Gardner Minshew if they're going to be paying down. And I think like earlier in the week when I did my first look lineup, I kind of clicked Gardner Minshew. But I think the sneaky one is actually Desmond Ridder, right? And I'll tell you guys why. Washington has given up a top quarterback performance every week this year. Like they absolutely cannot stop anybody like in the pass game. And yeah, they have a better pass rush, and he hasn't looked so good against the pass rush, but he's 5K, right? And you can stack him with what's his name, Drake London, and you can do a double stack with Kyle Pitts, and it's under 13K.
Yeah,
like it's just insanely cheap. So I don't usually recommend it. People call it a puke stack. This is definitely my puke stack of the week. But yeah, it's Ridder with the Falcons, man,
for sure. All right, I'll just mention the last couple of guys we have on so we can move on to tight end. I got Geno Smith at Cincinnati coming off a bye at 5.7, probably in that range where he's not going to get clicked on because you want to go up to Stafford or you can go down to Minshew. But I will mention Geno. And then Garrett's got Brock Purdy there at 5.6 against the Browns. And what could be a tough matchup. As a Niners fan, I'm a little nervous about this one. I think I'm more nervous about this defense than I am the Dallas Cowboy defense. So Purdy at 5.6 is also on the list. Let's get to tight ends.
Did somebody say tight ends?
All right, tight ends. We all have the same elite guy. And Garrett, since you're the guest here, I'll let you take it first. Who do you have up here in the top?
Man, Hawkinson, right? If your lock of the week is Kirk Cousins and there's no Jay Jettas on the field, you got to go. I would imagine his target's going to be Hawkinson a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 12, 15 targets here somehow, man, and touchdown or two. If you're going to pay up for tight end, I think this is a good week to do so for sure.
Yeah, I know we typically call him the Hawkin Goat on the show.
The Hawkin Goat.
Yeah, Hawkin Goat.
I might give him a new nickname. We're gonna call him Lockinson. Tim, you got anything on Hawkinson? I know that's all you have in the elite tier. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, there's no Travis Kelce, right? So you're like, who has that top end ceiling? And I really think it's this guy and really nobody else. You have the one guy, which we can talk about. He's, not 100%, but yeah, I think it's like a clear tier above everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. He is this week's kind of Travis Kelce because he is so far and above everybody else. The fact that Mark Andrews is on the slate, obviously Kelce is on the slate. So yeah, there's a couple.
And you can do it. Like there's enough value this week that if you want to pay up a tight end, like you don't have to have a shit lineup to do it.
Absolutely,
100%.
The other guy I had in the elite tier, and he is questionable, so make sure he's playing. But it's Sam Laporta, who's just been an absolute beast as a rookie tight end. You don't see it very often. Rookie tight ends come out. I mean, this guy's being priced as one of the top tight ends on DraftKings. I think he's a tight end one. Excluding the game from yesterday, obviously, Laporta was coming into this week as a tight end one in season-long fantasy as well, which is crazy to think about as a rookie tight end. But Laporta at Tampa Bay, 5.6 if he's healthy. I think he's also a decent play.
Yeah, Eric Ebron, eat your heart out.
Yeah. All right, we'll move down here into the mid tier. Garrett, why don't you go ahead and kick us off here in the mid tier?
Man, Cole Kmet. It seems like a theme of this show. We're kind of targeting that game.
Yeah.
At least Tim and I from opposite sides of the field. So I like him. If you're going to pay down a little bit, you want to go to the mid tier and think, I don't know, maybe they double Hawkinson or something or put a safety over him. Cole Kmet on the opposite side. And Justin Fields loves him, especially when they get close to the red zone, man.
Yeah, that's the key right there is he's the red zone target. And even coming into the season, Kmet was getting a lot of hate. And I was kind of like, he was a tight end 6 last year in fantasy. Like, why are we hating this guy? Nothing's really changed. I know they got DJ Moore, but nothing's really changed in the middle of the field. Cole Kmet at 4.6 just seems way too cheap. I love it.
Yep.
Tim, what you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Evan Ingram. You talked about it. We all want pieces of this Jacksonville offense this week. One stat I had is he has a 29% target share against, cover one zone. Last 4 weeks, 8 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets, 8 targets. I love consistent volume. So at 4,500, I think he's affordable. He's 2,000 less than the Hawkin Goat. But I think he could get you realistically. Like if you look at his stats every week, he's giving you that 16 even without a touchdown, right? So if he gives you 22 with a touchdown, you kind of have to have him probably. So I think he's just such a good price, and I'm a big one.
He's the one guy in the offense that's been consistent every single week. We don't know, is it Ridley week? Is it Christian Kirk week? It's always been Evan Ingram week so far. He's had every week, so I think that's a good call. So I had Kmet and Ingram. So why don't we go back to you, Tim? You had one more guy in that mid tier.
I did. Dallas Goedert, man. We saw kind of the breakout last week, and he's in that same range at 4,800. You actually beat the Jets with tight end. They're bad against running backs and they're bad against tight ends. So we'll talk about that guy later. But yeah, I mean, 22, you had to have him last week, basically, right? And we talked about there's a couple of really good tight end plays this week. It's probably my favorite tight end slate in a while, to be honest with you. But a lot of these mid-range guys, Kmet, Goddard, Ingram, one of these guys is probably going to be in the winning lineup.
Yeah, I love it. So we'll move down into the value tier, and I'll kick it off in the value tier. And a guy that I questioned last week, I questioned our guest because our guest had this guy, and I didn't really buy it. I was trying to take the other tight end in this offense.
Yep.
Talking about Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts
up against Washington.
11 targets. Where did that come from?
Right, exactly. I had to go back and add up his targets for the year to see if
Space Jam.
Yeah.
You come from space.
Yeah. 100%. So yeah, Kyle Pitts. You mentioned Washington. Their defense is stout, but I do think that Ritter is good enough to get the ball to Kyle Pitts if he continues to target him 11 times at 3.5. He won't be 3.5 for very long. So, yeah, for sure, Kyle Pitts. I'm buying in one more time. I've been on Kyle Pitts.
I know, right? He's going to break your heart.
Find it one more time.
Yeah, this is it. If it doesn't work out this time, I'm giving up on him for sure. Tim, you got another guy that's going to be pretty chalky here in the value tier.
I do. I only have one value tight ends, and it's Logan Thomas. He was in my first look lineup. You play tight ends against Atlanta. They're basically like the worst team against tight ends in terms of yards. He's probably not going to get you a 20. Like realistically, I don't think that's in his wheelhouse, but I think he's going to give you at least 10, right? Which is what you're looking for at 3,500. And then anything above that's just gravy.
I love it. Yeah, I got Logan Thomas on my list as well. So tight ends from both that game, same price, opposite sides, both of them good plays. Garrett, who you got for your value?
Man, I'm going to share a little secret with you guys, man. I've kind of been the tight end whisperer for a couple of years now. I just always seem to hit on tight end somehow. People hit on receiver, quarterback, run. Everybody's kind of got their thing. For whatever reason, mine's tight end. I like two plays. I like Zach Ertz. And 3,600, man, everybody's going to go to Logan Thomas, I think. Zach Ertz has been getting a lot of targets, and I don't see why that stops, man. And Arizona team that we already said is going to, make what's the Rams, push the pace, have to score points. And I also like the opposite of Kyle Pitts. I'm going to go back to some Jonnu Smith and think they flip-flop it a little bit and run it back with him.
Nice. I like it. I had one more guy that I just wanted to mention, and it's more about it's the flow chart, right? It's the flow chart play this week. Tyler Conklin versus Philadelphia. Philly's giving up a ton of points to tight ends. They're dead last in DVOA versus the tight end. Conklin is 3.3. I think he's had 5 or 6 targets in every game except for week 1, I believe, is the stat that I had written down. And, he's just been solid at 3.3. I think everyone's going to click on those guys we just mentioned, and no one's going to scroll down far enough to see Tyler Conklin down there at 3.3. So he's my other tight end value. All right, let's get to the running backs.
It's time for running backs. Running backs.
All right, we're going to start with the elite tier, and the elite of the elite, Garrett, is the guy that you like.
Man, CMC. He's expensive, but who else has 60-point ceilings on this slate that, and possibly in a nasty game where they're just going to hand the ball off a bunch? They may be getting Jeff Wilson's his backup, right? Are they getting him back?
No,
that's Elijah Mitchell. I'm sorry, guys. I'm thinking of the wrong team. But CMC is going to get a ton of work. We know that. Passing game, running game. It's steep, but he can always get you there.
Yeah, and Elijah Mitchell was questionable, just to go back on that, because they are trying to limit CMC's workload a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't think Elijah Mitchell plays because I think this is going to be a sloppy game, and they don't want to go him out there and get hurt. And Mitchell is the only back of the ones they have that can do a little bit of everything.
Right.
The guys behind Christian McCaffrey now are Jordan Mason, and he's just a bruiser. He's just hand the ball off and then run straight. So some of the things that Christian McCaffrey can do, he'll be the only one doing it because other guys can't do it. So that's a good call. I like CMC. Tim, what you got?
Yeah, I only have one guy, and it's ETN, Travis Etienne, man. I think, his best game until last week was week 1 against Indianapolis. And then last week, we probably saw that breakout that kind of people were expecting against Buffalo. But the big thing for him this year has been his pass game usage, right? He's consistently gotten 4 or 5 targets in every game. And obviously on DraftKings, that's so valuable.
Yeah.
So the thing about this week, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, is that I think you want to pay up for wide receiver. And so you're probably going to be paying more in the mid range for running backs. But I really like ETN here, man. If I'm going to pay up a little bit, it's probably going to be to him.
Yeah, I like that call. I had ETN on my list as well. And I also got David Montgomery at Tampa Bay, 7.3. Now, if you look at DVOA, Tampa Bay is actually, I think, the best or second best defense against the run. But David Montgomery is going to get all the volume he can handle. I just looked it up. On the road, he's getting more carries. I think in week 4 against Green Bay, he had 32 carries. That's insane. That's like a 1980s number. You don't see that anymore. And he had 21 in week 1 versus Kansas City. Obviously no Jahmyr Gibbs, and they're going to want to. This team has changed their identity. They're a run team, and they like to play good defense. And I think David Montgomery fits that mold. even with his 3.8 yards per carry or whatever it is, they don't care. They're going to still run the ball with him. So at 7.3, he's not priced too high where I'm not willing to pay for him yet.
Agreed. A good call.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, we can't take his guy from him. Yeah, we got to give you your guy, Garrett. Just go ahead and talk about him.
Yeah, go ahead.
Man, I don't want to skip over who that the best Saints we have. Kamara, 6,800. Listen, I was scared when he come back from the suspension. Beating people up in Vegas, probably drunk with some beautiful women, I would imagine.
For sure.
But doing his thing. But yeah, man, Kamara,
he was ready to go. Like he was like, okay, I'm right back to my same role.
Yep.
Ready to go. He's like, what are these other guys doing in this backfield, man? Give me the rock. Let's go. So yeah, Kamara, man, love him this week.
Yeah, he was my lock of the week last week, and he did pretty well last week. He wasn't quite the 13 catches he had the week before, but still had a really good week.
Yeah, he's got one of the best roles in the league, man, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Tim, what you got in the mid tier?
Yeah, well, the other two, I think we all have the same guys. So I'm gonna take Kyren Williams, and I'll leave you the other guy. Again, a guy who's got one of the best roles in the league, right? He's got really nobody behind him. He's seeing like 80+% of all running back touches every single week, and he gets this Arizona team that like everybody runs the ball against. Like it just seems so perfect of a spot for Kyren at 6,500. I know a lot of people are going to go with the passing game. I'll actually talk about it here, but he has had some games where he's gotten a number of receptions from Matthew Stafford. So I think you can stack Stafford with him. We've seen Arizona give up a lot of points to pass catching running backs. So, he could easily do 100, on the ground and maybe a catch or two, 3 through the air, and he could get you well over 20 points. So I'm going to go Kyren Williams. I almost put him as my lock of the week, but I like this other guy so much that I couldn't skip over it.
All right. Yeah, definitely. So I have, I'll talk about the guy that we all have, Mr. Must Start, Raheem Mostert.
Raheem must start.
Yeah, at 6.4 versus Carolina at home. Obviously, we know Devin Achane's not going to play this game. We still aren't sure about Jeff Wilson, but I find it hard to believe that a guy that's missed almost all the training camp, missed all the games, and hasn't practiced at all this week is just going to show up on game time and start scoring points. I just don't see
Not
it
happening, man.
Yeah,
I'm not at all worried about it.
It's going to be the Raheem Mostert.
He's doubtful. He's doubtful. He may not even play. Yeah. It's going to be Salvin Ahmed getting 5 carries and Raheem Mostert getting the other 20.
Yeah. And what's crazy is so as a Niner, I know Raheem Mostert pretty well. But he used to be known as a guy that doesn't catch passes very often. He's had games where he had 7 catches in a game. I mean, that's nothing that you get from Raheem Mostert. If you're getting catches from him as well, it's wheels up. I think he'll probably be one of the highest owned, if not the highest owned running back on the slate.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's the perfect matchup. They are the worst team DVOA against the run.
Hey man, if I can real quick, I know I had to hype train Kamara, but being honest with you guys, if you tell me must pick one out of Kamara and must start this week, listen, it's must start 100%.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bet he gets a touchdown. I'm on all the betting platforms. I'm gonna bet the yardage. I'm all over him this week.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if you're on the Underdog platform, that's a perfect time to go do that. If you haven't got an Underdog, goingfor2.com. It's GF2 is the promo code. You can get a deposit match up to $100. They've got some good Raheem Mostert's props there as well.
And see me in the chat. I'll give you my picks.
There we go. Tim, you got one more guy there.
Who? Swifty. Yeah. I really like the Eagles. We haven't really talked about the Eagles much, but they get a matchup against the Jets. We talked about it. There's 2 ways you beat the Jets. You run the ball and you beat them with tight ends. The thing I love about DeAndre Swift this week is that I think everybody's going to skip over him, right? Everybody's going to play the Mostert, Kyren, Kamara, or they're going to go down to the cheap guys we're going to talk about here in a second. People are going to skip right over DeAndre Swift. And I mean, his role lately, again, has been really solid. 15 to 17 carries, 2 to 5 receptions. That's what we're looking for, right? That's that Alvin Kamara role on a better offense. So I don't know. I if it wasn't for the guy we're going to talk about here in a second, he would be one of my 3 running backs.
Tim, I got to push back a little bit. I wouldn't say a better offense, but I'm joking.
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah, right now.
All right, we'll move down into the value tier. And Garrett, you don't have any values down here. Is there no one you like in the value tier?
That dust and despair.
I love that. It's a great answer.
That's where it's at.
It's a bunch of dust.
I mean, listen, there's some guys you hope they fall into the end zone. Some values opened up. I'm sure Tim's going to talk about, or you, Geoff. But since I put this in, but yeah, I'm gonna stick in that middle tier section, or I'm gonna flip the script, and instead of paying up for wide receiver, I'm gonna go CMC and hope he balls out again like we know he can.
Love it. Tim, who you got in your value?
Yeah, man, I'm gonna go with Chuba Hubbard, man. 4,300. This is the week. This is a guy we saw last year get opportunities and have some good games, man. He had a game with 125 yards. He had a couple games with multiple touchdowns. And the thing about him is this year in particular, Bryce's been checking it down to him a little bit. He's had a game with 5 targets. He's had multiple games with 2 targets. And that's in relief of Miles Sanders. And now Miles Sanders is out. So
I don't know if it's his growth or being behind CMC or a little bit of both, but he looks solid this year, man. Yeah. He really does when he gets the opportunity.
Yep. So I don't know. I mean, he's 4,300, right? He's like the value lock play of the week. This would be where if Gerson was on the show, he'd tell me, Tim, don't overthink this. Just hit lock.
Just do it.
That's Chuba Hubbard for me this week, man.
Yeah, good call. I have the other guy that's in that same tier that's also going to have a backfield to himself since the 2 guys in front of him are not going to play. Khalil Herbert obviously out. Roschon Johnson got ruled out today. So Donta Foreman at 4.4 versus Minnesota will get the full workload in the backfield. He's not much of a pass catcher, so you're not going to get that upside at all. But what you do get is the guy that can fall into the end zone a couple times because he's a big bruising back. I think last year when he was playing for Carolina, we actually had some stats that compared him a little bit to Derrick Henry-esque. I know he's not quite Derrick Henry, but he had some stats that compared very favorably to Derrick Henry. So against Minnesota at 4.4, if you're not clicking Hubbard, you're probably clicking Donta Foreman here. So he's a guy you can spend, that little bit of amount so you can get up to the Christian McCaffreys or to some of the receivers that we're about to talk about here in a second.
Yep. And I think the value that opened up today with these 2 running backs really broke open the slate.
Agreed.
I think going into today, there were pretty clear ways that everybody was going to go. And now that you can mix and match these Chiefs running backs, you can go a whole lot of different ways now. I think it really opened up the slate.
Agreed.
Hey, guys, listen to my boy Tim up there on Hubbard. Don't overthink it. Just do it.
100%. And I told you pre-show, Garrett.
I know you did. You did, bro. I did.
You got a point opposite.
Right. Hey, guys, the tequila's starting to kick in.
Hey,
I'm going to get a little spirited here as the show goes on. Let's do it.
Drink
all right, let's get to the receivers.
And now, wide receivers.
All right, let's kick it off here at the top. We'll go to you first, Garrett. Who you got?
Man, I'm going to go Cooper Kupp over Hill on this one. Puka Nacua or not, Kupp is the dude. He can get you 20 targets. He almost probably has Hill and Christian McCaffrey upside. He's got a Chase 55-point game in him coming this season, and I hope
same team. He's playing the same team that Chase played last week, right?
Yes.
And talk about a guy stepping right back into his role. He had 12 targets game 1. Like, they were ready to go. I love Cooper Kupp this week. I think there's a lot of lineups where you can pay up for him and another top-end guy and still have a good lineup. We know one of those Cooper Kupp 40-point games is coming. I don't see why it couldn't be this week.
100%.
I think it might be this week.
Stuff. I do want to point out, it was a good point in the chat from Chandler. It says that in the Vikings, 4 out of 5 games, they haven't allowed more than 60 yards. And he thinks that Foreman's going to be a trap, which is definitely a potential. He's super cheap, and that's why you're paying for him. You're hoping for the touchdowns. But, yeah,
this could be a Josh Kelly play. That's the best way I'll say it. This could be a Josh Kelly.
Got me two weeks in a row.
Yeah.
I tried to delete him from DraftKings, but they wouldn't let me.
Because they weren't using him in the pass game either, right? So Deonta Foreman equals Josh Kelly. Just write it down.
100%.
We got to talk about Jamar Chase, though. Like, this is the guy that I think he was almost my lock of the week. And the reason he wasn't is because he's like the chalkiest wide receiver on the slate, right? He's like the guy that everybody's locking in. Some projection sites have him as the #1 wide receiver on the week. T. Higgins is a game time decision, whether he plays or not. As I said in the Burrow segment, I mean, their connection was back, right? And that's not going to change this week. Seattle gives up the most, I think the most or second most points to wide receivers, right? I think it's after the Denver Broncos. So, I mean, it's Chase week, wheels up. He should be 9K and he's 8,300.
Yeah, similar to Burrow in that sense that they were so bad for so long, their prices have gone down. And the thing with DraftKings I've noticed, because I do value columns for Fantasy Pros, so I look at FanDuel as well. FanDuel seems to adjust their pricing like that. Like there's like, okay, they're back, boom, they're back to being elite price. Where DraftKings kind of like pussyfoots it, where they gets kind of slowly increase it. Where guys like Chase, obviously gets this little bit of a discount for one more week at least. So
they delay the prey for the sharks to come in and eat.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
No, I was wrong. They give up more points to wide receivers than the Denver Broncos.
Wow.
Would you say more along the lines of week 3 against the Rams, 30 points, or more like last week, 50, 55? And I know that's a big game, but
I have them around 25 points, which I think is 3 times value, which is already awesome in a cash game. 24 to 26 points is about what I'm projecting.
100%.
Good stuff. All right, so we'll move down into the mid tier here, and I'll kick off the mid tier, and I'll go with the guy that probably people aren't really thinking about because they think the Eagles' defense is really good, which they are, but they're not very good against the pass catchers in particular. Now I'm going with Garrett Wilson versus Philly. Don't look now, but Zach Wilson looks like he's a competent quarterback, not a good quarterback, but he's at least competent. He can get the ball out to some of his guys. I think Garrett Wilson at 6,000 is still way too cheap. I think the Eagles have given up 7 either wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 games this season, more than anybody else. So Garrett Wilson will get a ton of targets from Zach Wilson, and I think at 6K he can pay off his salary. And he probably gets junk time as well. I mean, they're probably going to be down in the fourth quarter. They're going to be throwing the ball over the field, and Garrett Wilson will get that junk time. So he's my mid-tier play. A little bit risky, obviously a tournament play only, but at 6K I like Garrett Wilson.
They are the flow chart team. Yep.
Tim, what you got for your mid-tier?
Can I get a drop?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to give you the drop. My bad.
Lock it in.
All right, man. This is my favorite play on the slate. So all of the stats back it up, too, which is incredible to me that this is not one of the chalkiest plays on the slate. It's DJ Moore. Like the last 2 weeks, Justin Fields is just locked in on him. Like I think last week I saw no other wide receiver had a single catch in that game against Washington. It's just drop back, look for DJ Moore and throw him the ball. And we mentioned with the running back issues they're having, they're going to have to throw the ball even more. Minnesota is 30th DVP to wide receivers. To me, he should be a 10, 15+% owned player who we have right around 5%. So to me, he's like probably my favorite play on the slate. 30-point upside at 6,500. I don't know how you don't just lock this in.
Yeah,
in both cash and GPP.
Good call. And just going back to Garrett Wilson, John just pointed out in the chat that Darius Slay is going to be out as well, so that also helps Garrett Wilson a little bit. But I agree 100%. DJ Moore is a play that I have that I think is going to smash as well at that price point. He's definitely going to be someone I'm looking at. Love that call.
Like he needs 19.5 points to hit value. Like I don't see how he doesn't get that.
Yeah, agreed. Garrett, what you got for your mid-tier?
Man, Amon-Ra coming back. Golf's favorite target. Golf's going to want to target him early, often, and frequently. He may get some frequent flyer miles off this game, guys. So, I think it's going to be a competitive game. And we all know what he can do, man. 7,700. I think he's a good, in a good shakeback spot where some people may kind of overlook him because he's coming off of, somewhat of an injury. I forgot what was up with him, but, an injury, down week. And then no Gibbs too, right? So more targets to him.
And potentially potentially a limited Sam Laporta as well.
Yeah, let everybody click Laporta. Let everybody click Montgomery. I'm going to go Amon-Ra.
Yeah, John's asking in the chat, are we afraid of the Road Goff narrative? And we haven't seen the Road Goff narrative this year. He's been actually pretty decent on the road.
Yeah.
They've been running the ball a ton too, which does help. But he's been pretty good on the road. Not great. He's definitely been better at home, but I haven't seen Road Goff rear his ugly head just yet.
Yeah, that's the one thing I will say is they run the ball more than any other team when they get inside the red zone. So if the Sun God is going to score, he's going to have to score from outside the 20 because it becomes Demont time when they get in the red zone.
100%.
Yeah. And what's that stat you said, 3.2 yards a carry or whatever it was for Montgomery, times that by 4, that's over 10 yards. That's a first down every 4 plays. So
Agreed.
Yeah, they have my biggest mismatch in terms of run blocking versus the opponent. So yeah, I actually love Demont this week. It was really hard for me not to click him too.
Yeah.
I'll take some low-hanging fruit here, and I'll go with Mr. Addison at 5.7. At Chicago, we all know that Jay Jettis is not going to be on the field. Ironically, KJ Osborne's been getting more snaps and more usage than Addison, but Addison has the bigger fantasy point games. And I think that this is the week that he kind of leapfrogs Osborne into a bigger role. I think he takes over that Jay Jettis role. That's why they drafted him at 5.7. He's just way too cheap. Gets a great matchup with Chicago. I think he's going to be one of the more popular value choices on the slate. I guess mid-tier is where we have him, but at 5.7, he can be considered a value as well.
I had one stat on him. After Jay Jettis went out last week, he had a 29% target share. That would put him in the top 6 in the league, man.
Yeah.
Like, to me, he's almost too cheap. They didn't adjust the price enough, in my opinion.
Agreed. And I'll take one more mid-tier because we got tons of mid-tier guys. I'll go ahead and hit my lock.
Lock it in.
So I mentioned that I like that Colts and Jags game, and my lock of the week is Mr. Christian Kirk at 5.4. It's partly due to the price, partly due to the fact that he's been sort of the guy in this offense. After week 1, I mean, I think he's averaging close to 10 targets a game. He had that rough week 1 where we all thought Ridley took over the number 1 spot, and that was going to be Ridley's season, and Christian Kirk would be forgotten about. And then all of a sudden, here comes Christian Kirk, starts balling out once again. So at 5.4, with the targets that he's getting in this offense and this game environment that we think is going to be a pretty high-scoring game, 5.4, I'm going to be clicking on Christian Kirk quite often. And spoiler alert, he'll also be probably in one of my stacks at the end of the show as well. All right, let's go back through, Tim. You got a couple more guys in your mid-tier.
Yeah, I'm ready to have my heart broken by Nico Collins again. Particularly if Tank Dell is out right now, he's questionable. He did get a practice in today, so he may play. Even if he doesn't play, I'm not really worried about Marshawn Lattimore because they move him all over. But he's been the guy that they've gone to, particularly in home games. He had obviously a letdown spot last week, but I think the defense matches a lot better. They play a lot more zone in New Orleans. So I think especially if you're going to go with the Who Dat stack, I think he makes a great run back.
Yeah.
Who dat?
I love it. Garrett, let's run back through here. Who else you got in your mid?
Man, listen, I got a couple guys. Y'all get ready. Take some notes here. Jacoby Myers going against his old team, New England.
Revenge.
Bill Belichick, revenge game narrative. Bill Belichick, what does he do? He shuts down your number 1. Okay, pick Bill. Are we going to shut down Jacobs? Probably not, because Adams. What you going to do there? Try to shut down them too. Jacoby Myers can run up and down the field on you in the meantime. Somehow Jimmy Garoppolo just continues to get surrounded by extremely good talent as a mediocre quarterback, if you ask me. But that's my take on him. But kudos to him. I'm also going to add somebody in here, man. Thielen, he just keeps doing it week after week. Like, who else is Bryce Young going to throw the ball to? Adam Thielen may be 76 years old, but he keeps shaking back and cutting on, these DBs and getting open and catching passes. I think that's what killed me on my early only this week, man. I was winning almost 10,000 and Thielen got a trash garbage time touchdown at the end of the game or close to it and kind of knocked me out of some money a little bit. But and I also like Tyler Lockett, man. I like Lockett a lot as a run back to that Cincinnati stack that we were talking about.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I like the Myers one. I know we talk about revenge narrative, and Gerst likes to always point out that it's not really a thing in football, and it's not. But it's fun to talk about. But if there's going to be a revenge narrative, I think this is the guy you talk about, because they basically just let him go and then signed a guy for basically the same contract,
same money,
in Juju Smith-Schuster, who's done absolutely nothing, whereas Myers has gone down, and all of a sudden he can catch touchdowns now too, because he's doing that for the Raiders as well. So I love that call. All right, we'll move down into the value tier, but I do want to mention
I do want to mention Hollywood Brown though, before we move on. Yeah, that's just really it, man. This guy's been one of the most consistent wide receivers in this mid range, right? He just scores 15 points a week, and he's in one of the best game environments of the day. So I think he's a good play. He's going to be pretty chalky too.
Yeah, I love it.
That whole game is revenge. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
so much revenge.
We'll move down into the value tier, and one of these guys was just mentioned in the chat by Chandler. Josh Downs at Jacksonville, 4.1, way too cheap. He has been getting targets from Minshew. Well, Minshew starting this game. I think in week 3 when Minshew got the start, Josh Downs had 12 targets.
Yep.
His last game with Minshew playing, most of the game there, he had his best game as far as fantasy points go. So Minshew loves Josh Downs at 4.1. He is super, super cheap, and he will be locked into a ton of my lineups. So give me some Josh Downs this week. Tim, what you got for your values here?
I'm going to go with Drake London. I told you my puke stack of the week was Desmond Ridder to Drake London. Washington gives up one of the most points to wide receivers. We saw, again, DJ Moore drop a 50 spot on him, particularly that left cornerback, dude. What's his name? Emmanuel Forbes just gets absolutely smoked repeatedly. So I know you can't trust Arthur Smith, right? Obviously, this is not a cash game play, but at 4,800, man, I think he's got some upside.
Yeah, I like that call.
I can't do the Bobby Trees, Scott. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
Hey, don't steal my thunder because he's on my sheet. I'm going to talk about Bobby Trees.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
We'll let Garrett take one of his guys first here.
Oh, man. Let's go Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard. We've been talking about the Jets, right? 3,700. Man, I could see him getting 5 catches, 50 yards. If he falls in the end zone for 3,700, he gets you where you need to be for, a cheap guy, man.
Yeah, I like that call. Speaking of Bobby Trees, I have Bobby Trees in my value at 3.8 versus New Orleans. Surprisingly, this guy has 40 targets through 5 games. It's about eight targets a game. He's had a game with 10 targets. He's 3.8. There's no Tank Dell. I think he can get 10 targets easily in this game at 3.8. You would take that all day. If I said you're going to get a receiver that's, been a top receiver in the past, he's basically Adam Thielen light. I mean, he's an older guy that's getting a ton of targets, and he's just going to do it for you. I kind of feel like this whole slate, we have a bunch of older guys that are kind of doing it as well. So Bobby Trees, 3.8. I do like him a lot. Do you want to talk about Mr. Osborne there, Tim? You got him on we both got him on our slate.
Yeah, I like Osborne, but I will mention one thing about Josh Downs. Jacksonville has actually been really good against the slot, and Josh Downs runs 82% of his snaps from the slot. They've been basically bottom 10. So I would temper expectations a little bit for Josh Downs. But KJ Osborne, I think he's, popping up in some places as the number 1 value play, or at least he was before the Chuba Hubbard news. Projecting 12 to 14 points at 4,400, depending on where you look. But right. I mean, I personally like Addison better. I think I'm going to pay up for Addison. But I mean, it could just as easily go the other way. They say that he'll be playing mainly the X role, right? Which is what Justin Jefferson normally plays. How many, first reads he gets versus Addison, I guess we'll find out. But, he's also been in these spots before and let us down. He's not somebody that's seen consistent target volume. And honestly, I don't feel that he really has that big breakout potential.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think he's a good maybe cash play, but I don't know how much I'm going to have in him in tournaments, because I think it's going to be hard for me to see him getting above 20 points, and you need at least that in a tournament.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I said, he's been the one with JJ in there that's been getting more of the snaps out there, but I think that Addison is the better play. I think Addison leapfrogs him in snaps this week. All right, we ready to get to the defenses?
Yep.
Let's go.
Defense.
All right, Tim, kick us off here.
Man, this one really shocked me, and we talked about this before the show, but it's the Detroit Lions. They have figured out how to hide Jared Goff's flaws, man. And it's on the road. Don't have him throw the ball a lot. Have him run the ball and play good defense. And that's what they're going to do here. They're going to force Baker into a lot of situations where he has to throw the ball. They're not going to let them run. It's going to be a lot of dropbacks, and that's what you're looking for a defense, right? You're not looking for teams that are necessarily going to give up 14 points. You're looking for teams that are going to get 5, 6, 7 sacks, and hopefully one of them turns into a strip sack or a, recovery and going the other way. So I think the cheapest team that has a shot at like 12 to 14 points on a defense is the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And we all had them, which never happens, man.
Never happens, exactly.
Yeah. Like, I think if you have a lineup that you absolutely love and you're a little short for the Lions, I think you can play the Buccaneers. I think they're the cheapest defense that won't give you a 0.
Right.
But I think if you can afford the other 400, man, it's worth paying up for the Lions.
Yeah, agreed. And go ahead and talk about Miami too, Tim, since you took all the defenses anyway. You got all the ones that we talked about.
Yeah. Well, I like the Browns just because we talked about this game could get real sloppy. If it ends up being a weather game, I think that they're in play. But I think if you pay up for a defense this week, it's the Miami Dolphins against Bryce Young. He's been so bad. He's been very unsafe with the football, right? He's had multiple fumbles, turnovers, and Miami comes and gets you, right? We saw what they did to Daniel Jones a couple weeks ago. So they're going to absolutely eat Bryce Young alive. This game could get out of control in a hurry. So, yeah, man, if you're ever going to pay up for defense, this might be a week to look at it.
Good stuff. And we have a guy in the chat that I want to mention because it looks like 2 people had him. Chandler saying if Bobby Trees is out, which he is questionable, and Dell is out, Noah Brown at minimum salary would be interesting. And then Brian chimes in that Brown was going to be his sick call this week. So Noah Brown, obviously, if Trees misses this or he's limited at all, he's an option as well at minimum salary. All right, it's stack time.
Goingfor2.com's weekly stack report.
All right, Garrett, kick us off here. What you got?
Man.
Hold on. Before you do, I just want to let you know, if you've been paying attention, none of our shocks should be shocking.
Yeah, exactly.
None of the stacks should be shocking at all.
Guys, I got a cousin named Kurt or a Kurt named Cousins, whichever way y'all want to say it. I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins, Hawking Goat, run it back with the lock of the week of Tim, which is DJ Moore, which just solidified DJ Moore will be in 120% of my lineups.
There you go.
I even like, instead of going the cheaper option for me personally with Cousins, I want to go the higher end, and I want to stack him with Madison if I do, a full complete stack. But Cousins, Hawkinson, DJ Moore, put Mustard in there, maybe Chupa Hubbard, the Detroit defense. Listen, guys, we may have just given you a Millie Maker lineup.
He's just giving you I love it. All right, Tim, what you got?
Yeah, I'm going with the Stafford stack, man. Stafford to Cooper Kupp. I even like Kyron Williams in there as well, and then run it back with Hollywood Brown.
Love it. Love it. That's a great one. Obviously, I mentioned at the top, I like this game, and I'm going to stack this game. I'm going with Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, and Josh Downs as my bring back. In this game, you can flip it up all kinds of ways. You can go Ridley over Kirk if you want. You can go Pittman over Downs. You can mix and match any old way. And you can even put Minshew in there and do a stack with Minshew if you want. So this game is a very stackable game. But that's the one I'm going to take: the T-Law, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Josh Downs stack. All right, let's get to the sick call of the week.
And now, the sick call of the week.
All right, just to recap, last week we all missed on our sick calls. Justin Watson actually did okay. I think he had 7.6 fantasy points. He wasn't good, though. We missed on him. We missed on Michael Wilson, who actually killed a few of my lineups, and we missed also on Tyler Conklin. So no hits on the sick call last week. Garrett, see if you can break the mold here. What you got for your sick call this week?
Listen, my favorite guys. So Nikon, I can't.
Hey, I take that back. Tyler Conklin had 10.7, so we're going to count that as a hit.
All right, well, there you
go. There you go. Nico Collins is going to be on Lattimore Island. As much as you want to play, Nico with probably no Dale because I don't think anybody's played off of concussion after 1 week so far this season because of Tua last year. So as much as you want to maybe think Nico, let me tell you, as the Saints, as the Saints, who dat nation, don't play him. I'm gonna go John Mechie the third, man. I think he's 3.1K, Houston, and he's super fast. See CJ Stroud, no interceptions so far this season. He's going to have to throw the ball to somebody. You would imagine the Saints are going to be up somehow in this game. I think this game has sneaky shootout potential, even though everybody thinks it's going to be lower, a lower scored game. So I like him a lot, man. And if you want to come back to me, or I kind of have two. I don't know if that's allowed, but
we'll allow it. You won 100K in week 1. We'll let you.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I knew that 100K was going to be good for something. Man, I got to give another shout out to my boy Randy, man. Put me on Brandon Powell for Minnesota. He I don't know if it was quietly or loudly, but got 6 targets, last week against Kansas City for 43 yards. Min Price, 3K. No JJ. If B Powell comes out there and gets a couple extra, let's say 9 for 50 and falls in the end zone, something like that, man, you're going to want him.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Tim, what you got for your sick call here?
Yeah, so we talked about that the the New York Jets are the worst team against tight ends. Second worst team is the Atlanta Falcons. Third worst team is the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions sneakily have been one of the best run defenses in the league. We talked about that. Baker's going to have to throw the ball. And I think the guy who's going to throw the ball to a lot this week is going to be Cade Otton. So we talked about a couple of cheap tight ends that we like. But I like him. I think he's going to be completely unowned. I'm talking about 1% owned.
100%.
And I think he could easily give you like 6 for 60 and a touchdown. And that may not sound like a lot. It's not going to win you the week, but if that extra 300, 400 you're saving over one of these other guys gets you that extra upgrade, that's how you're going to win the week. So he is, like I said, 1%. So you could throw him into a really chalky lineup, and he could be that one guy that separates you. So I like him for a lot of different reasons this week.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so these guys gave all kinds of good stats and things of why they like their sick call, and mine is strictly gut call. I have no stats really to back this guy up. I want him to break out. They're coming off of a bye week. I love him as a rookie. I think he's eventually going to take over the Lockett role in this Seattle offense, but I'm going with JSN at Cincinnati at 3.6. I think we've kind of already seen him start to become more and more involved in the offense. I think he had 6 targets before the bye. I think this is the week that they're going to come out and try to get him even more involved. They need to open the offense up a little bit because it's just been Lockett and Metcalf for so long. They don't have a tight end worth a damn. So JSN is my sick call at 3.6 this week. I
do have a stat for you on this one if you want it.
Go ahead, give it to us.
So Cincinnati is 28th in terms of points given up to outside receivers. They're 5th given up to slot. So you basically attack Cincinnati with the slot. That's where he runs 80% of his routes.
Yeah,
so
good stuff. Good stuff.
That's a great stat, Tim.
Yeah, that's
there
a
you
really
go.
good stat. See, I didn't even go that far. I just said I want JSN in my lineup this week. Somehow, some way, I'm gonna get him in there. Love it. All right, fellas, that wraps the podcast up. Garrett, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate you spending an hour with us. And
absolutely.
Listen, thank y'all.
You want to give a shout out to somebody? I want you to go ahead and give you an opportunity.
Absolutely, man. I want to give a shout out to my boy Randy, who helped me climb in the money during preseason. I want to give a shout out to my nephew Palmer Cruz, who demanded that I tune back in every time Aaron Jones and Tyreek Hill scored week 1 as I was climbing the ladder, man. So it's crazy. I was tied after the 1 o'clock game, 12 o'clock games. I was tied for 52nd, which was literally the last position that's in green. Yeah. And I was thinking, okay, well, if my couple afternoon guys do good, I'll double my money. I'll win 3K. Cool. Yeah. As long as you don't lose, you're happy. It don't matter if it's $1 or $1,500 or $1 million, right? You don't lose, you're good. And he kept, like, every 2 seconds, he's like, Aaron Jones just scored, check it. Tyreek Hill just scored, check it. Aaron Jones scored again. Check it. And I was like, it's freaking out, man. So
longtime listeners of the show know that when Jared won the mini max, he won with Amari Cooper, and he had gotten hurt, left the game, came back into the game, got a touchdown, and that's what pushed Jared into the money. Same thing happened with Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Got hurt, left the game, came back, had like a 70-yard run, and then ended up being enough to push you into the money. So sometimes when it's your day, it's just your day.
And look, what's crazy about it is the top when I got to third place, number one was beating me, and I'm at 15,000. So it's 20, 50, 100.
Right.
And I'm at 20,000, and first place is 20 points ahead of me. And I'm thinking, there's no way he's catching. I'm catching him. There's no way. Tyreek Hill scores another touchdown. All of a sudden, I'm like 2 points behind both of them. Y'all won't believe this, but Tim's lock of the week, DJ Moore catches a pass for like 3 yards, gets a point and a half, and that literally I won first place, which was the difference of 50.
Speaking of that week, same thing happened with Olave, Yumi. He had left the game, gotten hurt, come back into the game, and gotten like another 50 yards.
Wow.
Man, it really was your day.
If it wasn't for DJ Moore's 4.5 points.
Yeah. Gotcha. Hey, guys, you can find me on Twitter at Keto DFS or X, as they call it these days. But most importantly, hop in the DFS Roundtable group on Facebook. That's where I do my weekly thread where I bring all the best stats from around the internet to you and put them all in one place.
Good stuff. As always, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at Geoff Lambert77, and I talk about the Discord in every show. You can find the Discord link on goingfor2.com. You can find a link in my Twitter profile. Go join the Discord. We have over 1,000 members. It's pretty active in there. But more importantly, if you haven't checked it out yet, check out our new website, goingfor2.live. It's been live for a few months now. I've been just kind of tweaking it and getting it ready for prime time. I think it's ready for prime time now. All the links to all of the shows are going to be in there. You can listen to the show right there on the website. It's got all the episodes. So if you want to check out anything from our content and you don't feel like scrolling through Spotify or iTunes, it's all right there at the website, goingfor2.live. And for the chat, once again, thanks for showing up. Y'all make this show great by having your comments in there. We love having the comments. Love you all joining us every week. And Garrett, you always were in the chat. We didn't see you in the chat this time because you were on the show. So it was great to get you on the show, man.
Thank y'all very much. I greatly appreciate it. And man, anytime y'all invite me, I'd love to be back.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Thanks, Garrett.
All right. For Garrett, for Tim, I'm Geoff. We will see y'all next week, and good luck this weekend.
Go Pack, go!